Welcome to the Spinner Rack. This is the Secret Friends Unite Patreon's exclusive comic book show. We are here to break down a specific comic book story, character, element, and I do that with Charlie Carden and sometimes guests. And this is typically a show where we break down a specific thing, and we've been doing storylines. And this week we're doing Irredeemable Volume 1. But before we get into the meat of the show, we want to thank our patrons who make this show happen. So, Charlie, who are those wonderful people?
Oh, my goodness. We have on our BFFs level, or excuse me, our Best Buds level, we have Jamie Prinky. And then over in the BFFs, the top tier, we have the awesome Nias family, Sean, Stella, and Henry. Your friend and mine contributed to the show, Missy Merchant, and her friend, Andy Milliken. Thank you to all of you for making programming like this possible. We couldn't do it without you, so we do love you. Todd, what do we have selections this week? As I've said before, I let Todd pick these. He throws something at me, and then we read them. And so, yeah, what do we got going on here?
So this comic is called Irredeemable. It's from Boom Studios, and this came out in, if I've got this right, August 5th, 2009, written by Mark Waid, who is one of the best in the business. You might have known him from Kingdom Come. That was his baby. He's done a bunch of other great books on The Flash, other titles as well. And then illustrator Peter Krause, who is a artist I'm not as familiar with, to be honest. He does not do the covers, I believe, so that's hopefully it's not a bait and switch to some of you who would be like, oh, that work doesn't look the same, which is very common in comic books these days.
Is this that's not an Alex Ross on the cover of this, is it?
I don't believe so. No.
Okay, that's all right. I mean, it's I thought it was great art inside and on the cover. I wouldn't have really have given it a second thought as not being the same or being inferior or superior. So anyway, I thought it was fine.
Yes. It's hard to tell by the cover because there's like a little name on it, but I cannot tell who that is with a little. Typically, every artist signs their art. This one, it's really hard to tell. It looks like two eyes coming together. So don't know, but not Peter Krause because that doesn't look like a P or a K. Yes. So from that, this comic is available on Comixology if you want to get it there. It's still in trade paperbacks, available at your comic book shop as well. And the synopsis is: Irredeemable asks the question, or dares to ask the question, what if the world's greatest hero decided to become the world's greatest villain? A twilight of the superhero style story that examines supervillains from the writer of Kingdom Come and Empire. Empire is a very similar type of story, Charlie, just tell you, but that's where the villains win. And that's a world where the bad guy kind of takes over, and it's what happens. But this is kind of the opposite. And Mark Waid has typically been the guy who only does things from the pure-hearted superheroes, has stuck to traditional stories, but he does have a layered storytelling. So for him to do this type of book was a big step forward to say, what if you took Superman, who finally just had enough? And that's kind of the best way to say that is
Snaps
this
like
premise.
A twig. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so this is 4 issues long, and I was joking with you, Charlie. I said I couldn't sleep one night, so I decided to read this book to hopefully get my brain shut off a little bit more and then fall asleep. It was a page turner, so it did not work in that way because I kept reading. I read up through volume 3.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
So it is a page turner, which is a good thing because then it's like, oh, I want to know what happens next. And that's what great comic books do. So that's kind of the premise of this comic. This comic obviously has overtones of Superman, super group, things like that. But essentially it's about the Plutonian, who's the main character. He snaps. We don't, in the first 4 volumes, we don't, and there's spoilers. There might be spoilers in here. We don't want to dismiss you from checking out this book, but we do have to hit some beats. So we don't know exactly specifically what the event that caused it to break or was a culmination of things over time. But you do get hints of it, like when he's listening to a crowd and everybody's cheering him on, and then he hears one voice that says, it kind of dismisses him or treats him
like those absolute shades of Homelander, without a doubt.
Correct.
The television version of it, because you remember that he's giving a speech at one point. The show's been going on for a while. He's giving a speech, and somebody accosts him or whatever it is, or yells something nasty, and then he has a daydream of just unleashing his laser vision and just wiping out that front part of the crowd, which doesn't happen.
Exactly. And I was looking about it because I was like, I don't want people to think this is just The Boys, because that was a study in superheroes, all of them being kind of rotten to the core,
exactly.
And being at their whim, versus this is truly We don't get that in this book, which was not like, it's not like the all like looking at the view of like, oh, everything's bad and you can't trust anyone. This was not that story.
Yeah.
They are layered heroes as you go on, as I would read it. I learned more, which was good, but it wasn't that. And The Boys came out in the comic in 2006. So yes, you'll see tones of that, but from a Homelander perspective, not from every hero. And this really is focused on the heroes versus like the everyman, which is kind of the Boys perspective.
Right. Although there, at the end of this first volume, there ends up being, once the Plutonian is going nuts and he turns to wipe out a city, just wholesale slaughter of civilians. I enjoyed it too. I didn't find it quite the overall page turner that you did. I found, and this was unavoidable, but I found it to be somewhat distracting. That they're throwing out all these character names out there, and although I feel like they did their best to keep us informed, like here's the Legion of Superhero people, and they find a secret fortress or whatever it is, but I'm just like, without that built-in familiarity, I'm like, okay, well, where's this piece or that piece? Because really, you're playing to the Plutonian, and I felt like something that was contributive of his snap is when his secret identity was revealed within the news organization that he worked in, and then he walks to all the people and says, "Hey, you know my secret now. You'll never be safe again." And then subsequently, all those people end up killing themselves because they can't deal with the pressure. That was very raw. That's not something that you'd see out of Clark Kent.
No.
Yeah. So that was,
and to your point, during that scene, he goes up to the satellite before the power that thing actually gets the satellite to launch. He destroys the satellite. So it's like, wow, he just figured it out.
Right.
And just everyone, these are original creations. These are not tied to any existing universe. So it's a lot of like, we're not even going from the beginning of the story. We're kind of jumping all the way into something has happened. And here you are now.
And that is, to spin off of Irredeemable, that's kind of unavoidable. Because again, I know that on the DC side, that the Injustice storyline, that Elseworlds deal, that is all based around, well, what if the Joker killed Lois Lane? Isn't that whole story? And then Superman, boop, that's
absolutely
makes him crack. So this is it in some ways, I think, suffers from a disadvantage of the fact that, well, we don't know these characters, but the archetypes, even if you just sit back and say, okay, well, this is, just imagine, this character is their Batman, this character is their Wonder Woman, and it's within that framework, but then it's also the violence that is everything you see on The Boys, both in the comic and certainly on the screen, with Homelander squishing heads and cutting a guy in half by throwing a ragged a car door at him or something like that. Just a very casual, though we're in The Boys, in some ways it's played for its own type of laughs. It's there's no laughing in this because it's just all extraordinarily gruesome.
Yeah, and everyone is. I mean, and I'm trying not to remember where the first volume ended when I continue to read, but you do in Homelander, at least in The Boys, he is not like taken out a nation yet. He has not had that one next step where it's like, wow, that's bad. I mean, he's getting there. I think we think that's where it's going to.
Yeah.
But in this, I mean, the devastation he commits and the level of genocide that the Plutonian makes is unbelievable. I mean, it's just like, holy cow, he just took out Singapore, or he did this, or oh crap, he's doing what? And you're not safe. He can hear anyone. So everyone's paranoid. The world leaders are kind of out of sorts what to do. And then the other part is you do get to see the villain's perspective. Once again, I can't remember if that was part of volume 1 or more volumes.
I feel like it must be past volume 1.
So that's a cool part too. And that's why to me it was a page turner, because I didn't know what was going to happen next. And I didn't know what to expect. And I wanted to learn more because they don't give you everything. It's like, you don't know about his origin. You don't know all these characters and their relationships, and you're only given bits and pieces. So, and this was meant to be like a long-term story. So it is really.
Was it ongoing? I mean, is it something?
Oh yeah. This Irredeemable is God, I can't remember how many volumes it is, but it's long. I think there's like at least 9.
So it went on for 7 or 8 years. Or longer.
Absolutely, and it's an independent book largely because it's at Boom Studios.
Yeah.
So Mark Waid is able to do what he wants for a long period of time, which is
Right.
nice. And then he made a companion piece, Charlie, called Incorruptible. It's on the other lens of a villain, so we may have to look at that one in the future, see what the gives and takes.
And we don't know if is there an intercorrelation between the two, or
I don't know yet. Like I said, I'm done with volume 3 here, and I don't know that character. I'd have to look and see who actually that character is, who is the lead of that comic is. If it is someone we learn about, or it is a character that's in that world.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
Kind of like the Billy Butcher style, maybe.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I like, because again, you can go like, okay, the plutonium, whatever, but you can simply say, okay, well, this is Superman, or this is, to a lesser extent, like, Brightburn. What if you got a kid that, hey, he was always rotten. And it just took this thing. It just took, some schoolyard bullying, and then he snapped like a twig, but he was a kid, where it was very, it was very different. But what would happen if you had this, completely unstoppable, it's not like Superman where he had a weakness and Batman would say, hey, I have this fail safe of this, Kryptonian spear, or this Kryptonian whatever, that is something that can kill him. I don't believe plutonian, perhaps that's something that changes as you read more volumes, that
again, you get into it, and there's a lot of layers to this, becomes really entertaining and interesting. That I appreciate where they're going. So it does, it's what's going to, if this hooks you in, I would recommend read more, because it does get a little clunky at times, but I think some of the cool elements are neat. There's one part that kind of made me kind of like, I don't know about this part, but maybe it's going to pick up. Yeah. So I will say, I know you said you didn't mind the art. I thought the art was not great. And to me, it wasn't something that actually helped the story. It was just there. It was serviceable.
More run of the mill. Yeah. It was your Mark Bagley, sorry, who's, and I know you're not a fan, but I always found his stuff very serviceable, as opposed to, as I was talking about on our show this week, the current run of Amazing Spider-Man. They had a guest artist in whose name I did not recall, but his style was so distracting because it looked very, very unfinished. And I don't really care for that. But again, art is, in the eye of the beholder. It's up to the interpretation of what the person who's reading it really enjoys. So, to each their own. So, but this is neat. I might go on if there's more to be discovered. I'm kind of curious. I'm kind of curious to see really what that means, but this is cool. And again, you are, Mr. Independent, kind of throwing some of these at me. I like having my eyes open. That's why I enjoy this segment. So that's kind of cool. Nice.
Yeah, this was probably our hardest, trying to remember how it's spelled titles. I'm like, how many R's are in this, and how many E's?
Right.
So many.
Right. Exactly. So many. The good news is that from cut and paste, you've got it right there.
Yeah.
But this is cool. So Todd, are all of the volumes available on Comixology?
I think the majority of them are. I read them for free, at least through 3. Probably could read more. And this is not for kids, obviously. This is more for adult reading.
Very violent. Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't a ton of gratuitous violence or things like that, but the implied impact is very adult.
Right, exactly, correct. And of course, look for it at your local comic shop. Talk to your local comic vendor if you can't find them, because they can often place orders for you. But definitely support local business when you can. That is something that we feel very strongly about here. But this was fun. This was a good one. Nice pick as always. Do you have our next one lined up that we can tease people with?
I do not want to commit to that at this moment. I will have it in the next couple of days, and I'll put it out there to the group too, because I mean, I do want people to be able to read it in advance, or at least be prepared and check it out. So, so I hope people who are familiar with this maybe continue on with the story if they lapsed. And if you are new to it and you want something a little bit different in the realm of heroes, hopefully this is enjoyable to you.
Good deal. Awesome. Well, cool. Patreons, thank you as always for joining us. And we look forward to bringing you more fun content. As always, visit secretfriendsunite.com to learn about all of our other shows. Dig deep. You can find most of our info there, and you can find us, me personally, out on Twitter at the C3 and at thegrandpetoskey.com, our Star Trek fan club chapter. Todd, you?
At T Oxtra is where you get most of my stuff, just having fun with the world, interacting with others in the nerd mind hive. And then other than that, try to keep our Twitter flowing with updates on our shows and kind of like who we're going to have on. It's a great way to direct people and hopefully get more people interested in our stuff, which then leads people to secretfriendsunite.com and also to our Patreon. So if you're on a Patreon trial right now and listening to this too, let me just tell you right now that you'll get the show about every 2 weeks. You'll get Charlie's stuff, Mark's on occasion as well. So that's a reason to say subscribed.
You bet. All right. I will say goodbye, and we will see you next time.
Everyone, remember, be the hero, not the villain. And as Stan Lee always says, Charlie, Excelsior!
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow @SecretFriendsU on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.